Hi there and welcome back. Now, we've all heard of folklore such as red wines need to be served at room temperature and white wines well chilled. But what do these all mean and why? And whose room temperature are we talking about? After all, there are 7 continents and 7 different climate types. It's currently 10 degrees Celsius where I'm at in Portugal. It's 5 degrees in Seattle, and in Singapore, it's probably closer to 30 degrees Celsius. If we were to do a simultaneous tasting of the same wine in these 3 locations, the wine will smell and taste differently if it's served at all of our room temperatures. So whose room temperature are we talking about? Now, wines are like human beings. Some of us love the heat and will thrive and be sociable, whilst others would become grumpy and non-interactive. And similarly when it comes to wines. So let's start behind the science of how we taste. Did you know that 70 to 90% of what we taste actually comes from our sense of smell? Now, our overall sense of smell is a combination of our gustation and olfactory senses. It is no wonder that when we have a cold, food tastes unappealing and even bland because we would have lost up to 60% of what we would normally taste through our sense of smell. Under normal circumstances, the taste buds in our mouth and throat will detect the different tastes when they come in contact with the different molecules and send signals to our brain. And similarly, our olfactory bulbs will process the different aromas that they detect. And the sum of these, as processed by our brain, is what actually makes up our overall perception of taste. Now, how much we smell and taste is greatly dependent on the temperature of the respective substance and, to a lesser degree, its surrounding temperatures. With warmer temperatures and heat, more aroma and flavor molecules will be released, but there is a fine line because too much of something, even if it's something good, can be bad. For those of us who cook, think of how we fry aromatic spices such as onions, ginger, and garlic before adding other ingredients. If these aromatic flavors are not treated warmly with TLC first, then they won't display as much flavors or depth. And similarly when it comes to wines. And for those of us who eat only, not me because I cook all the time, imagine eating a cold curry. Its explosive and sunshiny flavors will be muted. If a wine is served at its optimum temperature, the right amount and kind of aromas will be released as intended by its winemakers. Too cold and we'll lose out on a lot of the warm and exciting flavors that need some warmth and heat to be released, and the wine can seem tight or closed, which are common expressions when a wine struggles to display its aromas and flavors. Too warm, and most of the wine's delicate and light flavors will disappear because they're destroyed at higher temperatures. Fresh fruit flavors could end up tasting overripe, cooked, baked, and even jammy, that is, like jam. And this is particularly true when red wines are served overtly warm. Now, it's not only a wine's aromas and flavors that would be affected by its temperature, which we can broadly categorize as its concentration. If you've watched my video, What Does the Body of a Wine Mean?, I explain a wine's DNA structures and how they correlate with one another. Sweetness, acidity, concentration of aromas and flavors, tannins, and alcohol. In case you missed out on it and you'd like to learn more, I'll leave a link to it in the description box below. Now, the remaining 4 factors are also affected by temperature to a greater or lesser degree depending on the type and style of wine, as well as the individual characteristics of the wine. Now, bear in mind that the actual levels of a wine's sweetness, acidity, tannins, and alcohol do not change. It is merely our perception of it that changes due to the wine's temperature. Warmer temperatures will magnify a wine's sweetness, but it's not a big deal if the wine is dry. If the wine is sweet, on the other hand, it would exaggerate the sweetness and its texture could become unpleasantly syrupy or cloying. Try drinking some caramel syrup on its own. Cooler temperatures will increase the perception of acidity, giving it a refreshing lift. Imagine drinking sparkling water that's chilled versus one that is not chilled. The chilled sparkling water would be so much more enjoyable and refreshing. And it is for this reason, coupled with how the texture of sweet wines can become syrupy at warmer temperatures, that all sweet wines are served well chilled in order to balance their high levels of sugars. Red wines in general are served at higher temperatures due to the presence of tannins. And if you think about it, they also have more flavors which are less delicate because they were fermented at warmer temperatures than white wines. All red wines contain tannins because they were fermented with grape skins, almost like the skins were tea bags. If you'd like to learn about the different types and styles of wines and how they are made, I'll leave a link in the description box below to my video, Types and Styles of Wines. Tannins are like monkeys. They hate the cold. They become astringent and even hostile sometimes. With warmth, they soften and become sociable. The presence of tannins in all red wines is the main reason why they're served at warmer temperatures than other styles of wines. At warmer temperatures, a wine's alcohol will be intensified. Therefore, if a wine is served too warm, its alcohol could seem imbalanced, where you get a warming or burning sensation in your mouth or the back of your throat, when the wine shouldn't actually have such an effect. We sometimes refer to this as the wine being boozy. On the other hand, serving a higher alcohol wine at cooler temperatures can help to mask its booziness. A simple experiment to prove this would be to store a bottle of spirits, say a vodka, in the freezer. And in case you didn't know this, it will not freeze because spirits are close to 40% ethanol proof, which has a freezing point of close to minus 15 degrees Celsius. But back to the experiment. Try 2 shots of vodka next to each other, one from the freezer and the second one at a warmer room temperature, and take note of the difference in how much warming or burning sensations you get. So the moral of the story is, wine serving temperatures do matter, and they are equally as important as the need to allow a wine to breathe. Now, I've never actually measured the temperature of my wines, nor do I believe that it's important to follow these guides down to the T. But if we know how temperature affects wines, that gives us the ability to identify if something is amiss and to correct it so that we'll have a better experience with the wine, say by warming the wine up a little or chilling it down. The following are some guidelines related to temperature and the different types and styles of wines that you might find useful. Lighter bodied wines are served at cooler temperatures than fuller bodied wines of the same style. For example, lighter bodied reds such as most Valpolicellas and Beaujolais, as well as some Pinot Noirs, should be served at the lower band for red wines, which would be between 12 to 14 degrees Celsius, whilst fuller tannic reds such as Barolos, Bordeaux, Cabernet Sauvignons, Merlots, Shiraz and Malbecs should be served closer to 18 degrees Celsius. Lighter styled whites such as Pinot Grigios and Vigno Vids should be served well chilled between 7 to 9 degrees Celsius, whilst fuller bodied whites, and in particular those that have been oaked, such as most New World style Chardonnays and Semillons, Viogniers and Gewürztraminers, should be served lightly chilled, say between 11 to 14 degrees Celsius. And your medium-bodied whites, such as Sauvignon Blancs and some of the Rieslings, would be in between the two bands. When it comes to rosés, I simply eyeball it and look at the color and intensity. If it doesn't have much color and is of pale intensity, then I treat it like a light-bodied white wine and chill it down to between 7 to 9 degrees Celsius. If, on the other hand, it has a lot of color, which a great example of that would be Tavel's rosés, which comes from the region of Rhone, then I would treat it like a fuller-bodied white wine and chill it down slightly to between 12 to 14 degrees Celsius. If you're struggling to smell and taste the wine, then it's probably too chilled and you need to warm it up a little. If you'd like a quick trick on how to warm up a glass of wine, then I'll leave a link in the description box below to one of my shorts called "What Can You Do If a Wine is Too Chilled?" Now, you can also leave the bottle of wine somewhere where there's some sunlight but not intense heat. If the wine is young or youngish, that is, it's less than 10 years old, and it's not a fortified style, and you happen to be tasting baked, jammy, and overcooked fruit flavors, try chilling the wine down, and you might find that its fruit flavors will become fresher. If you're feeling unpleasant, warming or burning sensations in your mouth or throat, chill the wine down and it ought to improve. The best and fastest way to chill a wine down would be to fill a tub with ice and water and submerge the bottle. And here are some recommended wine serving temperatures based on their types and styles. Sparkling wines, 6 to 10 degrees Celsius. Sparkling wines are well chilled to preserve their bubbles and acidity. Sweet wines, 6 to 8 degrees Celsius. Sweet wines are served well chilled to feature their acidity and balance their high levels of sugars. White wines and rosés, 7 to 14 degrees Celsius. Red wines, 12 to 18 degrees Celsius. Fortified wines, 10 to 18 degrees Celsius. And here's a summary. What happens to a wine if it is served too warm? Increased perception of alcohol and sweetness. Its acidity could be masked. If it's a sweet wine, its texture could become syrupy or cloying. Fresh and delicate flavors could be hidden. Fruit flavors could seem overripe, baked, cooked, or jammy. What happens to a wine if it is served too cold? Muted aromas and flavors, as they can only be released at warmer temperatures. Tannins will be more apparent and their nature could be distorted. And that brings us to an end to why wine temperatures matter. I hope you found this session particularly useful, especially since it's cooling down significantly in the Northern Hemisphere. In case you're wondering what's in my glass, this is yet another one of my happy finds for under €7. I think it's of exceptional quality to price ratio. This is a lovely blend from the Cité de Carcassonne, which is in the south of Languedoc, and it's by Domaine Ausias. I think the varietals are very expressive of their individual characteristics because I can taste them very clearly, but they blend really well together. So try it if you'd like. As always, do show your support by hitting the like and subscribe buttons if you haven't already done so. Comment on this video and share it. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop me a private message. Until next Saturday, here's to good health.